So I'm Colonel Kelly Smith. I'm assigned as the Deputy Commander at the 3rd Special Forces Group out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I'm serving forward as the Commander of SOC Forward North and West Africa, which is headquartered out of Baumholder, Germany. And we're currently in N'Djamena, Chad. I just messed that up, so I gotta redo it. Okay. I'm Colonel Kelly Smith. I'm assigned as the Deputy Commander of the 3rd Special Forces Group out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Currently, I'm deployed as the commander of the SOC Forward North and West Africa, headquartered in Baumholder, Germany, and as the exercise director for Flintlock 17 in N'Djamena, Chad.
Excellent. And what role does SOC Forward play for Flintlock?
So SOC Forward Northwest Africa has a continuing, persistent mission across the north and west of Africa. Flintlock is a long-standing AFRICOM SOC Africa exercise where we train and exercise with our SOF partners. These are the same partners in the same battle space that we operate in SOC Forward Northwest Africa. So it's in our interest to train and exercise with these same folks to improve our partnership across the region.
Why is that important?
So everything we do in SOC Forward Northwest Africa, everything we do against the violent extremists that we find in this region is with our partners. This is an African problem and we're here to help them. And so if we want to work together, we start with relationships. Relationships turn into friendships. When we can take those friendships and relationships and exercise together with training, then that's where we get true interoperability. And that's where we are able to maximize the effects of those partner forces in their operations against our mutual interests.
And speaking of some of the terrorism things, like what are some of the problems here in Africa?
So across the North and West Africa battle space, we have problems that range all the way from Libya around through the west to, of course, the AQIM problem in Mali, and down here, particularly in the Lake Chad Basin, the Boko Haram, ISIS West Africa threat. As we do the exercises in Flintlock, we move them around from year to year for a chance for us to discuss and develop planning and training that is focused on a particular threat. This year, Flintlock 17, our focus is ISIS West Africa and the Boko Haram problem.
And who is all involved? So here I guess I'm looking for you.
Yeah. Okay. Is that off camera if I throw that there? Yeah. Okay. So this is a very large exercise. So we're operating at 10 training sites across 7 different countries at this point in time, and involving almost 2,000 soldiers from 10 Western partner nations, including the United States, and 11 African partner nations. And that gives us the depth of the relationships to affect problems regardless of where they occur in our operations in SOC Forward North and West Africa. Currently in Chad, almost 500 people living here at N'Djamena, and this is where the headquarters is, and that's the bulk of the multinational staff training that gives the higher headquarters capability that's necessary to control the tactical training that's going on at all of these 10 different outstations.
And what kind of training is going on? Like, I know there's sniper training, there was that boat training.
Yeah. So at the soft, small unit tactical level, there's a variety of training that goes on. It includes close quarters marksmanship, urban combat, machine gun training, counter IED training, air assault operations, medical training. Critically important also communications training, because at the end of the day, as we try to connect the tactical actions to a headquarters to execute a plan, it's important that those tactical units have a means to communicate to their higher headquarters. So very diverse set of skills, tactical skills that are occurring at all of these outstations. All of that ultimately being integrated into a plan that's developed here by the multinational headquarters. And so as you go from each training location, also the skills that are being taught are based on the priorities of that particular African partner and the capabilities of the Western partners that are with them, so that they find something that they can train on to meet a particular need that the partners see on the battlefield as something that they can improve on.
And one of the things you just said within that soundbite was communication. And I know he was mentioning earlier, you are forward now, but you're out of Fort Bragg. How does that whole process work?
So from the U.S. side, obviously, communication is something that we work very hard at, and it is one of the bedrocks of how we do mission command. So as a nation, we've invested heavily and we work and train constantly, and so the ability for me as the SOC Forward Northwest Africa commander to do my mission that's occurring on a daily basis across the region I can do that from bomb holder, I can do that from here in N'Djamena with U.S. communications connectivity. The real challenge when we get into a multinational situation is how do you develop a standard set of practices? How do you ensure the interoperability of the equipment that everybody brings to the table? How do you ensure that there's a common understanding of what formats and what information requirements are needed to whom and when? So that's really the focus of something that we can work on in Flintlock, that as we overlay the U.S. presence, when we use our organic equipment, we're able to do that. But we want to take it to the next level and say, how are we able to expand that so that the African partners can be participants in that communication, become integrated into the mission command of a multinational headquarters, and synchronize their operations?
Not as, I was going to call it a baby bomb holder, but, you know, small bomb holder in Germany, Africa, Fort Bragg. How do those?
Yeah, so it's a very complex question. So at Bomb Holder, our headquarters of about 130 people oversees a mission of 600 plus personnel that are spread out across the continent, 42 outstations, and we communicate with them on a daily basis. We do that by layering mission commands. So the small detachments that are out there, whether they be civil affairs, psychological operations, or special forces teams, or naval special warfare elements or marine special operations elements. All of those are organized underneath advanced operating bases, which are then organized underneath 2 SOCCs, Special Operations Command and Control Elements. So we have one that's responsible for the Sahel and the Maghreb, and we have another one that's responsible for the Lake Chad Basin. So co-located with us here on a persistent basis is the headquarters of the SOCC Lake Chad Basin. It oversees our day-to-day counter-VEO operations across 4 countries, Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. But it's disconnected from the exercise to some degree because it exists all the time. The exercise just happens to be co-located here, and we're giving an opportunity for the persistent partnerships that SOCC Lake Chad Basin enjoys. Some of them are participating in the exercise to improve and enhance their skills.
In a nutshell, sir, why is it important that we have an exercise like this at Flintlock?
So as I watch from the SOC 4 Northwest Africa perspective, and I see that the challenges that our partner forces have in engaging with and defeating violent extremists in their region, it's easy for us to identify where there are improvements that can be made or advances that can be made in how they operate, and particularly how the conventional forces that are engaged in those challenges could integrate special operations forces from their own country. But we need to increase the training level and increase the awareness of a multinational headquarters and how to plan for and support those operations. So Flintlock gives us an opportunity where people's lives are not at risk to train on those, demonstrate capability, take that immediately back to the real world operations, and integrate those soft forces into day-to-day operations in an effective manner.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you, or anything additional that you want to put in there?
So yeah, so I think it's important to understand that Flintlock is a huge undertaking. As you try to sustain and support and receive 2,000 people across this huge expanse of terrain, the tyranny of distance, the austerity of the conditions is a huge challenge. The soldiers from 3rd Special Forces Group in SOC Africa that converge on that problem set, as well as our Western partner nations, allow us to focus for 3 weeks on critical training that benefits our African partners, our relationship, and ultimately leads to interoperability that we can immediately apply into day-to-day operations that SOC 4 Northwest Africa is seeing. And I would be remiss if I didn't just congratulate everyone that's involved on making sure that the logistics challenge of pulling off such a significant exercise should be recognized.
Excellent. Yellow map behind you. If there's any way you can have me like point at it and be like, this is 1.8 times larger than the U.S., or just overall impact for how large this exercise actually is, or how large Africa
Sure.
is.
So as I mentioned, I talk about the tyranny of distance. It's something that we wrestle with as a challenge from the SOC 4 Northwest Africa perspective on a daily basis. And if you can see the map here, highlighted in yellow are the training locations I referred to earlier. But as a means of perspective, from where we're at in N'Djamena, Chad, which is just north of us in Missouri, is our far eastern training location. Our training locations extend all the way to Nouadhibou, Mauritania. In fact, we've got a C-130 from the Ohio National Guard that is flying out there today. And to give you a sense of perspective, N'Djamena to Nouadhibou is like flying from Key West to Alaska. So it's almost twice the size of the continental United States, our operating area, and it goes from our northern training location in Bizerte, Tunisia on the Mediterranean coast, all the way to Limbe, Cameroon on the Gulf of Guinea. And as you can see by the terrain, it is very austere, very large distances, limited infrastructure, and our logisticians and sustainers have pulled off an amazing feat in partnership with our Air Force partners from the Ohio National Guard that make this all happen. And this is also a good lesson to learn because we wrestle with those challenges in SOC 4 Northwest Africa every day, whether it's sustaining a force, providing CASEVAC, providing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. These distances are something that we need to be very cognizant of.
So from your perspective, having been here now for 4 days and observing when you arrived,
Yeah.
What's your takeaway from what's going on in terms of Flintlock, the success of Flintlock?
So far our Western partners and the African partners have done a great job in executing their training plans on time, on schedule. They're providing reporting to the headquarters here. In talking with the trainers that have previous experience with the Joint Multinational Headquarters, we're further along at this point in the exercise than we have ever been before. We look forward to increasing the challenges as we talk about Flintlock for next year. And so as we merge the tactical training into the headquarters training, those things are going to come together, and that's really where we get significant benefit. I think it's also important to understand right outside of this building, which was built as exercise-related construction by a CB force that came down here and spent the last several months building this facility to use, that will turn over to the Chadians and the Chadian Air Force. So there's residual benefit to the execution of this exercise, because this facility that we're using for the exercise is something that the Chadian Air Force in particular will be able to use as they train their pilots for many years to come. Also outside this camp, the ability to go from essentially nothing as far as infrastructure goes to a camp that's capable of feeding 3 hot meals a day, providing showers and life support functions to a camp of 500 people. That all was stood up in just a matter of a few weeks, and so it's a great effort.